Hello, Frizzle Folly. Yes, I know my background isn't as beautiful as normal. So I decided to take advantage of that inconvenience and get a space with a whiteboard film today. Amongst our weapons, Rivers of London series book 9. It's always fun when you've caught up to a series and then you get to be reading a book when it's released. You're just part of the fandom now. And of course, that was even more disappointing that I didn't think that this book was as strong as some other books in the series. Because it's one that I've been looking forward to for like 6 months now. Here's our agenda for the day. We start out positive, negatives, then positive at the end. I'm not having too much fun with this whiteboard. You're having too much fun using the whiteboard. Peter's character, as always, is an absolute joy to follow. Peter has been growing into a mentor-teacher figure, and we see that even more in this book as he's training a new recruit, Danny. But even more, Peter has been growing in these books as a person who is willing to promote change, especially within the Magic Police, which is where he works. He wants to bring in the disenfranchised, to open lines of communication with people that they weren't talking to before, and I loved the scene in this book where the Fae people who run the Goblin Market, like the Magic Black Market, are trusting enough of him and know enough about his reputation to be able to approach him and say, hey, we want to change the agreements and go public and be less of a black market. And it's only because Peter has spent books and books and books building up the reputation as someone who is willing to negotiate about things like that I think this negotiation is even happening. And that plays into Peter's role as the Herald of the Dawn, the person who is changing the magical culture of England. And another part of Peter's character is that he definitely cares about fairness and trying to do what's best for everyone. This goes back even to the jazz vampires of like books 2. He is campaigning even for the villains to be able to be redeemable. So when they're fighting against this practically unbeatable warrior in this book, and Nightingale is like, let's just bring in a sniper, Peter is like, how about no? How about we try to bring her in peacefully first, please? And that is so awesome in character, yes, do it. And that brought some much needed emotion into this book where Peter had to kind of debate, do we take the safer plan of setting up a sniper or the more risky plan of trying to bring her in alive? And this is where we transition into talking about this heist plan thing. Because this is where this plotline wasn't executed well. Peter wanting to avoid using lethal force? Yes, that's been part of his character arcs for many books now. Good. Peter coming up with an inventive plan in order to capture some powerful entity? Yes, good. But here's the thing. Okay, here is a piece of writing theory. You're planning a heist in your book. Should you tell the audience the plan beforehand or not? Because there are some pros and cons there. If you tell the audience the plan, and then the heroes execute the plan perfectly, you're giving them the exposition of what the plan was twice, once beforehand and once while it's executed. And so that is sloppy writing and should be eliminated. So then the theory is, if the heroes are going to succeed in the plan, don't tell the audience the plan beforehand. Just mention that there is one. If the heroes are going to fail in the plan, it's good to tell the audience beforehand so that they know how things are going wrong when things go wrong. So, you following? Peter comes up with his awesome plan. And then we as the audience do not get to know what this plan is. We just know at this point that it's like dangerous and inventive. And then the plan gets executed, surprise, it works, the day is saved. So this book has followed the writing theory, right? That's good. I would say that this is the wrong book to apply that theory to. Because in a heist, where's the dramatic tension coming from? It's coming from wondering, are the characters going to succeed? And also the awe of seeing their plan come into place. You get to be surprised by this plan. That is the dramatic tension and entertainment of a heist story. Is this what Rivers of London is? I would argue no. Because this book has not set itself up really as a heist. Even though this book is a crime procedural, I'm not reading it to see Peter's awesome plan get executed. I'm reading it for Peter's emotions, for the character development, for him making the decision. What decision does he make? Well, while planning for this heist, he makes the decision to go ahead with an incredibly dangerous plan that has a high percentage chance of killing him and failing. And he does this weighing in the balance his own life and also his responsibility to stay with Beverly and his unborn children. So there was a moment in this narrative where Peter thought through this plan and had to make the very emotional decision that trying to bring in this dangerous woman peacefully was more important than his own life, and we didn't get to see that moment. We didn't get to feel the impact of that decision because it was turning into a heist instead. where the plan was hidden from us. And instead of getting the emotional tension and resolution to his character arc, we got the tension of, ooh, what's his plan? There definitely is one. You'll find out soon. And maybe for some people, that is the story that they want to read. But for me, I was just sorely disappointed that we missed out on the emotional moments we could have gotten in favor of the plot action suspense, which I don't think we needed any more of. Yes, there were many moments in this book where it was, will he succeed in apprehending this dangerous woman? But that wasn't the emotional core of the book, and so to hinge our climax on that instead of the emotional core of the book of, should he sacrifice himself in order to bring her in non-lethally? Disappointing. But putting that aside, let's address an even bigger problem I had with this book. The slog of it. The ever-maintaining of the status quo. This book reminded me of the books that are referred to in the Wheel of Time fandom as the slog. You know why they're called the slog books? It's because the plot doesn't really progress. That it is pages and pages of things happening, but not things and characters changing. Not actually getting closer to the bigger plot goals of the series. And that's what this book felt like. I got to the end of it and I was like, did anything change? Yes, the twins were born at the end of this book. I will acknowledge that is a significant change. But you know what it didn't do for this book? Actually change the status quo of this book. Next book's status quo, Peter's a father, that book will be changed. But as the twins thing happened at the very end of this book, I don't think it counts for this book, book 9. And the lame thing is, we keep getting all these teasers of future change that will happen in this series. And then the change doesn't actually happen for books. Let me break it down for you. Here are some of the plot lines in this book. Leslie is in this book. Does anything happen between her and Peter? Or to her, or to Peter because she's there? Nope. There's the plot of the Enchanted Rings and the Angel Warrior, which is the plot driving this book, so yes, that's good. But then we've got the Sons of Wayland, the Magic Forgers, who are introduced in this book, and it's implied that them and the Folly are going to start working together more closely from here on out. But does anything actually change with how the Folly is working at this point? No, it's just implied that it will change in future books. The magic of reaching into other dimensions that the Fae and the Rivers do was developed. I would have liked more, but I'll discuss that more at the end with the magic section. And then at the end, we have the announcement of the eventual retirement of Nightingale, which implies change to come in future books, but does not change the status quo of this book. This feels like an optional novella kind of book, where you could just skip it and pick up at book 10 and notice that there was a time skip and that the twins are born now, but not actually miss anything. Which, if the entire series was finished and I was binging it all, I probably wouldn't mind so much. But I'm looking for a full book installment here, and I didn't get it. And that was annoying. This book definitely feels kind of scared to kill its darlings. It's so protective of its status quo that we can't have anything shaken up. This book doesn't really make any new waves. And I like books that make new waves in a series. Now, moving on to themes. One of the ongoing things that's been set up in many Rivers of London books is kind of the question of religion, ? Because if you're believing in the supernatural magical side of things, a lot of people ask the question directly to Peter Grant at many times. So, do you believe in God, or do you find this proof of his existence, or whatever? And that is a question that comes up many, many times in this book, because the dangerous killer that they're hunting down is kind of angelic. And I do think that this was incredibly well earned from books 1 through 8, and the beginning of this book. Because this is a theme and an idea that hasn't been introduced here. It has been a question that has been brought up intermittently over and over again. And one of the facets of Peter's character is that he's pretty non-religious. For him, he has separated the mysticism religion and the magic. Magic for him is just a science, which is fun, and it's an interesting way to explore this. And I thought we would get to explore that concept even further through all of this angel themes, people asking him questions about it, people bringing it up. I thought that maybe this would influence his actions even more in a way. Like, perhaps it could put him at odds with someone who is more overtly religious, like 𝐂𝐸t in this book, and that could instill some interesting tension and drama into this book. which is why it was disappointing, because this very interesting theme that has been building for books and interesting question was not really elaborated on, and it didn't seem to actually change the character motivations or plot throughout this book. It was just brought up, and then they're like, just kidding, it's not a real angel, whatever, and moved on. And I feel like even if the angel wasn't a real angel, that doesn't mean that you couldn't have gotten extra drama from like mixing religion and magic and Peter wanting to keep them separate. And that's like an interesting concept. Can we explore it, please? But no. So that was a personal disappointment to me that I thought we were going to explore this interesting, juicy theme, and then we didn't really. Okay, but now let's round this off with some positive theorizing about this magic system, which I adore. This magic system is a relatively hard magic system, which oftentimes is my favorite type because it means that you can make fun predictions of how things are going to go because it's been set up like a science. And I am definitely a science nerd. I love that. The book series has wonderfully set up the magic system to basically work like this. Magic is powered by your own brain, aura, whatever you want to call the energy that humans have. And if you can get your brain into the exact right mental shape, then you can cause magical effects. How do you get your brain into the right mental shape? Well, you have to be able to detect when other people are doing a magical spell. For example, Peter detects his mentor Nightingale doing a spell. If he can accurately detect how Nightingale is doing the spell, he can then copy it in his own mind and perform the same spell. And that takes a lot of practice for new types of spells, which is why magic is so hard to learn. But it has given us this basic cause and effect that we can kind of rely on. If you can accurately detect and identify a spell as it's happening, you now have the skills and knowledge needed to perform that spell. And yes, it might take you a lot of practice to get it right, but that's how you learn new magic techniques. So why is this so fascinating? Humans power the magic mostly from within themselves. They are using their own brain aura magic. But supernatural creatures, such as the river spirits or the fae, seem to power magic more through interacting with alternate dimensions and siphoning energy through that. And for books now, Peter has been practicing and getting better and better at detecting and identifying when someone is doing the alternate dimension boundary magic. And if he's really good at detecting and identifying when people are doing alternate dimension boundary magic, how long is it really going to be before he can accurately perform those kind of spells? And I think this also connects back to the way that the supernatural community is calling him things like the Herald of the Dawn, like the bringer of the new age, because we've already seen him bring in the new social structures and reforms to the magical community. But maybe he's going to completely reform magic. Maybe he's going to be the human magician that really cracks the nut on using these alternate dimension boundary effects and controlling it that way. So even though this book disappointed me on a plot level, on a magic world building level, I did really like it, and it got me thinking a lot about this puppy. If you made it to the end of the video, leave a ring emoji in honor of the magic rings in this book, and thank you for watching. If you're interested, I have designed Rivers of London t-shirts along with t-shirts from other fandoms, so you can check that out at my store. There's a link in the description.